Is that the viral theme?
So we're here at your house in North Carolina and went to your skate park this morning, and things are running, but things aren't running as they normally are. Obviously, I think every skate park in the world's been hit really hard by this COVID situation. Can you give us a rundown on what you're doing in order to stay open?
What we're doing right now, we are running camp at limited capacity, and we are offering private sessions and private lessons. So the thing is, in the state of North Carolina, gyms are not allowed to open. And we're not really a childcare. It is like a different type of business license and all that. So, I can do things where it's limited to the amount of people that are in the building, but I can't just open and just have everyone come. Also, you have some people are really relaxed about it, like if there's someone else around them, but there's other people that are not. So when the whole thing happened and everything was kind of crazy, the pros that live here and myself, we all said okay, we're gonna ride together, don't come in contact with anyone else, just ride. And then as a month or so went on, we realized that there were other kids kind of doing the same. 4 or 5 kids, they're riding with themselves somewhere. So I figured hey, will you guys want to do a private session? That it's just you guys. And and that's kind of how it started, this whole way of doing the private sessions. And then we were allowed to do camp, so we added the zone.
Does it seem like it's going to be that way for the foreseeable future?
I think we're in this for a while. I don't think next month it's going to just change. I think we might be able to open normal maybe at some point, but I don't think it will last long. With the cases growing in the United States, it's just rough, And then you have all around the world, it seems like skate parks are not really allowed to open. I keep checking England, and those guys can only ride outside. I think pretty much everywhere else in Europe, they have some sort of stipulation that where they can't really open normal. Here in the US, the kitchen just closed. Ride, something's happening with Ride. I'm not really sure all the reasons, but and I'm sure there's other parks out there that are suffering. The issue with parks is that you need traffic, you need people to physically be there. And if they can't, then it just becomes a burden. Think of the buildings are crazy expensive for everyone. Unless you own it, you're most likely paying rent, and that is a huge expense.
This has obviously been really hard on your business as far as keeping the doors open. It's obviously been hard on skate parks around the world. What sort of steps do you think people can take in order to keep things moving?
I think some of the steps parks can take to keep open is get a better hold of the expenses. There's not much you can do with rent. Insurance, in my case, it didn't change. Electrical, water, that kind of came down a bit. But payroll is basically the big thing. Between some of the pros volunteering their time for the private sessions and lessons, also in a way I became more efficient. I'm not just open randomly for 5 hours. I have no one come through the door. When that happens, you're paying, the person that's there. Right now, the only time there's someone in the building working is when there's a session or something. So in a way, I became a bit more efficient with my bills, and it's giving me an understanding more on okay, how was the movement of people? During the week is very slow. During the weekend, maybe once we open, I can go and hire someone and be hey man, be here from 12 to 8 or whatever time. And I know people will come through the door, but I think the biggest expense is definitely during the week when you're open for hours and no one comes through the door.
As far as balancing skate park owner with pro rider, how is this affecting you? Both with the stress of the business impacting your riding and also with the reality that there aren't any events on the horizon. How are you dealing with all that?
It's definitely crazy times. I keep riding as if I had a contest next weekend, but I enjoy riding. I enjoy riding at a high level. It might come from just being at home, stranded, not being able to ride, that if I have the chance, I'm going to use it. But it also, in a way, has been a blessing in disguise because I've been home. For 15 years, I travel somewhere every week or 2 or 3 weeks. And this time I've been home for 6 months. So I've been able to take a bit more care of the place, which I think it was crazy when you have other people running it and you're not there. It's really tough. So in a way, it sucks. There's no events. There's nothing, to kind of look forward to at the moment. But, I've been trying to put some more TLC on the park and take care of it and try to figure out the business in itself. It's very difficult business. And just like I said before, it's a bit unpredictable. So again, it's giving me a closer look at like what everything's happening, and talking to parents and talking to kids and the people that do visit the park, how we can improve, what we can do better. And I think hopefully I will have a good learning experience from all this. And if we do survive this pandemic, we hopefully make the business actually better for the future.
You have a lot of pro riders that live near you and ride the park with you. How's everybody's motivation?
So we have a lot of pro riders here in Holly Springs. And, when the pandemic first hit, I think everybody was kind of in shock, like, oh, what's going to happen? And everybody seemed crazy motivated. You went insane. But I think it's taken a toll on everyone's mind. Like, they show up and sometimes they'll take 3 runs. And then sometimes they don't show up for a week, which is kind of crazy. Then, they'll have some weeks that they're crazy motivated. And I really don't have like a real answer on to why they're like this, My guess is like there's no events, so they treat it a bit differently. Maybe because they're younger. I'm a bit older and I do enjoy riding regardless of contests or not. It's giving me time to actually learn things, Like I think for the longest time I was basically doing maintenance riding. When now it's like, well, I can go sand it, get broke off, and it's okay, there's nothing to look for. I mean, you don't want to get hurt, but if I do, I can actually take the time off, which is crazy. They will most likely never again in their life have this opportunity. And, they're wasting it, in my opinion, but that's what they do. And it seems like I'm learning that everyone has their system and they do what they think is right. And well, if it works for them, cool. I guess we'll see at the end of the pandemic and when events happen, like if it actually worked or not, So
you've been a professional rider since 2003. What advice do you have for the riders around the world that are struggling with this situation right now in order to stay motivated and stay on top of their game?
Mental toughness. I remember when I first started coming to the States and getting to ride with Dave, he would seriously tell me that all the time and I didn't understand really why. I thought it was just like to compete, you have to be mentally strong, but I think this is beyond competing. And I understand, like I might not be motivated some days, it happens, it's natural. But you do have to like rise above, man. Like who survives this is not gonna be the strongest, but who can adapt to change. So you're gonna have to like be vigilant on your goals. You're gonna have to make sure that you keep yourself motivated. I think that's where the mental toughness comes. Just like you have to put in perspective what you really want. Like this is a time for reinvention. Maybe what you were doing wasn't working. Maybe it's time to like take a closer look at that. Especially if you're trying to compete. Like there's just so much that goes to it. Competing to me is an art that you have to study. You can't just show up and hey, I can do all these tricks. I'm gonna just put them together and win the contest. It doesn't happen like that. There's a lot of background, and the number one thing is riding time. You need to be on your bike. If you're not on your bike, nothing's gonna happen. So yeah, my advice is just toughen up, Cookie, and just try to ride as much as you can.